Kevin Warsh is going to have to prove himself if he wants the markets and the politicians and the pundits to think of him as independent. Everybody's wondering, what did he have to say to Donald Trump in order to get a job that he's been auditioning for a decade? He has said a lot of things about the Fed. He's been very hostile to the Fed staff. He's criticized his predecessors for their quantitative easing. So we'll have to see. I don't think he will be perceived as independent unless he does things that demonstrate that. And it may be a while before we know. The markets already expect the Fed to cut interest rates a couple more times this year. So if he delivers on that, people will say, well, that's not much different than what Powell was talking about. So the question then comes later. If the economy proves more buoyant, and we have more inflation than people had hoped for, will he have the spine to raise interest rates or stop cutting them, even in the face of stiff Trump criticism, the kind of stuff that Jay Powell had to put up with? I mean, let's start with one important distinction between Kevin Warsh and some of the other Trump appointees. He is qualified for the job. He has a resume that is appropriate for a Fed chair. I wouldn't say that about some of the other Fed. I wouldn't say that about some of the other Trump appointees. Um, Also, once you get the job and you're confirmed by the Senate, you have, at least so far, a certain amount of insulation from the president. The president will say horrible things about you on social media if he doesn't like you, as he has done to Jay Powell, and I can imagine that happening again. But let's remember the president's talk about firing Jay Powell flopped, both because he doesn't apparently have the legal authority, but because it didn't play well with the markets. And President Trump is sensitive to the markets. Um, and secondly, uh, you 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 don't know what happens when someone gets the job like that and they have the awesome responsibilities of being the most important central banker, maybe even the most important policymaker in economic sphere in the entire world. It does have a way of sort of sobering you up. So I think the administration overplayed its hand. I think Powell did a masterful job of turning the argument away from whatever missteps the Fed made on the building, this building construction that's over budget, and turned it into an argument about whether the Fed should be independent. The Fed won that argument. And my guess is the DOJ investigation will evaporate, uh, and Kevin Warsh will be confirmed by the Senate. And Tillis is making sure that that happens. Uh, it looks like the president loves chaos and attention, but I am sure that people like Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, understand that when you're the world's largest borrower, you really don't want people to think you have lunatics in charge of the Federal Reserve. And there have been candidates whose names have come up in this thing, not the four finalists, but others who I think the markets would have seen as upsetting. The really interesting issue is the dollar. The dollar has been sinking. An explanation for that, one of many, is that it's a vote of no confidence in the leadership of the U.S. government and its management of the economy. And now the president seems to be okay with a weaker dollar because it tends to help manufacturing exporters. Other people think it's nuts, that it's going to lead to higher interest rates in the US, or maybe more inflation. And so I think that they needed to put someone in the Fed job who seemed like a grown-up. And that's particularly important if we run into some crisis. It's possible you can have a crisis and the president says something unhelpful on social media, and you could take a small crisis and make it a big one. And at times like that, you want a calm voice at the Fed, someone who says, don't worry about the president. I'm in charge. Everything's going to be okay. We can manage this. And Kevin Warsh has the advantage of having been at the Fed during the global financial crisis. So he has a sense of how you can do things that build confidence or wrote it. And so that may be an important attribute of this pick. It might not have mattered so much to the president, but I bet it did matter to some of his advisors.